Welcome to Customized Creations. Today we're doing a comparison review on the Sig P290 and the P238 models. Right off the bat, let's give you some specs on these two guns, as on paper they seem very similar in size. First, the length on both guns is 5.5 inches. The height on both guns is 3.9 inches, and the width on both guns is 1.1 inches. So basically what we're being told is that the gun dimensionally on paper is the same size. The sight radius on the 290 is 4.3 inches. A key note here is the 4.3, whereas on the 238 it's 3.8. So with that being said, when you look at it side by side, even though the overall length is 5.5 inches on both guns, if you were to take and set the 290 down and the 238 on top of it, what you're basically getting is, yeah, they're the same length, but look at the size, how much more length you have on the slide compared to the 238. So right there, the deceiving part being on paper that, yes, they are the same length. And when you're talking the same length on it here, we're talking this beaver tail to the front is the length that they're measuring. The same thing being said on the 290, from the beaver tail to there. So looking at the two side by side like this, you can kind of see that the slide, get a little tape measure going here for you. The slide is really only about 4.5 inches long on the 238. On the 290, if we go back to the edge here, let's just say 5 1/8. So 5 1/8 inches versus 4.5. So we're almost 3/4 of an inch. You know, a little shy of 3/4 of an inch there. That's big. That's really big. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because my wife, looking at the specs on both the guns on paper, was under the influence, having seen a 238, held a 238, and shot a 238. Thought, wow, you know, if I can get a 290 and it's basically the same size as a 238, awesome. You know, that's what I want. And I don't want a safety. I want the double action. You know, we're golden. Well, now that we received the gun, she looks at it and says, wow, this is a lot bigger. Well, it is. On paper, the numbers all look to be about the same size, but when you look at the width on the guns as well, you can see that the 290 is a lot wider. And looking at the size of the slide, you can see that the top of the slide on the 238 is below the 290. So the slide itself is quite a bit bigger on the 290, width and height and length. So the overall dimensions, you can see, setting the two guns, yeah, 5.5 inches. They're both right about right there. But again, notice that height difference between the back of the slide and the top of the 290. A lot of weight comes into play there. So, getting back to my clip notes here, they both have stainless slides, polymer frame on a 290, aluminum or stainless is an option on a 238. As far as empty weight on both, 20.5 ounces on the 290, and let's see here, 15.2 ounces on the 238 with the aluminum frame. They both hold 6 rounds. You can get a longer capacity magazine for each one of them if you wish. Getting back into the size, the physical size versus the theoretical size on paper, both the guns, again, being dimensionally the same on paper, but different in physical size due to the fact of the longer slide and things of that nature. The weight is another thing to look at. A polymer frame is light, so that's got to tell you that there's more mass in the 290 because it weighs 5 ounces more than the 238. So the more mass is in the slide area. The gun is wider. Overall, the whole gun is wider. It's got a bigger frame to it. So again, if you were to throw it in a box, in a cube, both guns are going to fit in the same cube, but dimensionally wise, in physical, putting it in your hand, they're going to be different in size. So going over some of this stuff, and I wrote up this really nice article, and I've kind of gone off on a tangent and just kind of winged it here. The 290 is a really good gun, and I think the idea of pocket guns, subcompacts, compacts, full size, definitions are great to classify these guns in general categories so that you can say, hey, you know, I want to look at a pocket gun. And you go into the store and the guy says, okay, well, here's, you know, a bunch of pocket guns. He's not going to pull out a full-size gun and set it with the pocket guns and say, hey, yeah, you know, look at this gun too. So it's great to have definitions and categories like that. But on the same category, these guns would be probably dropped into the same idea. And to me, I wouldn't say that the 290 is really a pocket pistol. I would say it's more of maybe a smaller subcompact pistol versus the 238 being a true compact, a true pocket pistol. So looking at it in that perspective, when you look at these guns, smaller framed people like my wife, she's 5'4", 110 pounds. She's small framed and likes to wear tight clothes. The 290 sounded really good on paper, and when she got it, it's just way too big. The 238 is more her size. So again, on paper, both of them look like they're dimensionally pretty close to the same, but I mean, huge difference for somebody like her. Now, for us guys, this might not be a really big deal. I like the 290. I think it's a pretty cool gun and everything. The 238's, it's pretty darn small. So comparing the two, the 290 actually feels a little better in my hand. She liked shooting the 290s. It wasn't a fact that the gun shot different. And getting into that as well in a little bit, we'll talk about the triggers, but you know, it was just the idea that the 238 was really dimensionally smaller in your hand than it is compared to the 290. Okay, we're going to talk about the triggers here. The trigger on a 290 is a longer, heavier pull versus the lighter, shorter pull on a 238. The trigger difference is that the 290 is a double action only. When you pull the trigger, the hammer comes back and it's also released on every trigger pull. The 238, when you pull the trigger, it only releases the hammer. So it has one less action, is considered a single action gun. The downfall, in my opinion, to a single action gun as a carry gun is that you have to carry the gun with the hammer back and a manual safety on. A double action only gun, you don't have to do so. It's ready at a moment's notice, you just got to pull the trigger. So one less thing for you to have to remember to do, and in a stressful situation, a person that is a non-gun person or a novice, I would tend to lean and say, hey, you know, go with the double action only. Just pull the trigger. It's all you got to do. Point and pull. There's no time to have to drop the safety on it or anything like that. So the advantage for the 290, more towards a novice person or somebody that's not going to practice with their gun much, being a double action only aspect of it. It's easier to manipulate. On the 238, it's easier to shoot the gun more accurately because it does have the shorter, lighter trigger pull in a single action form. But it also requires you to practice with it more and train yourself to use that safety lever. So that's a whole other topic to get into as far as triggers and stuff like that, and double action versus single action. So we'll just leave that for now, and I'll say that I prefer the double action guns as carry guns myself because there's no safety on them. I'm not really fond of safeties on guns. With that being said, just for the reason that it's one more thing to have to manipulate. You should know that the safety is your trigger finger and your brain. You don't put your finger on the trigger unless you're going to shoot the gun. So with that being said, the double action only guns seem to be a little bit more user friendly to somebody that's not going to be using their gun often or isn't a trained individual. The weight difference between the two of these, the 290, the overall bulk of the 290 versus the 238. Again, referencing back to my wife on this one, saying that somebody that's a smaller framed person or somebody that's going to wear tighter clothes or something like that, like a female would wear, the 290 is definitely bigger. And in the case of our situation here, my wife really was hoping that she would like this gun, but ended up not liking it just because of the size of it. She really likes the way it shoots and everything, but she admitted, honestly, I'm not going to carry the gun that much. I wouldn't be inclined to carry it as much because it's big. The 238, I'd be more inclined to carry because it's a smaller gun, and it would fit in her wardrobe better. And here we go, another argument on that one. Well, adjust your wardrobe. Well, we all know, honestly, come on. I mean, most women aren't going to do that. A lot of guys aren't going to do that. So that's kind of an argument that a true gun enthusiast, he'll adjust his wardrobe to fit the gun. That's great, but let's all be honest here. We're not all real gun enthusiasts. Some of us just want to carry a gun to protect ourselves. So we're not going to go on out and buy pants that are 2 sizes bigger so we can inner waistband a holster. The sights on both these guns, they're Sig Meprolites. They're very good sights, night sights. I can't really complain about them. They're probably some of the best night sights on the market. You get your targets really fast with them. They hold their glow for a real long time. They say 12-year shelf life on these things. 7 to 8 years is probably a good shelf life on these. Maybe a little bit longer if you don't mind them getting a little dimmer. But most of the small guns on this size, the 290, again, I'm going to classify it maybe as not really a pocket gun, maybe a little bit bigger, a small subcompact gun. Most of those are going to have pretty decent sights, but a lot of the guns that are in the 238 category, being a pocket pistol, the LCP, the Kel-Tec, and things of that nature, they have nothing on them for sights whatsoever. They're strictly a point-and-shoot gun. My theory on this as well is going to be that any gun that's pleasurable to shoot, meaning it has good sights, the recoil isn't that bad, you're going to shoot it more. You're going to train with it more. The LCP, when that came out, I bought one, shot it. The recoil was really aggressive on it and had really crappy sights on it. As soon as I got my hands on a 238, not even a second thought, man. Throw that LCP to the curb, and the 238's the way to go. A lot less recoil with the 238 as well. It's got a lot better system in it, so you don't feel the recoil beating your hand up. To have a small little gun like that that's going to beat your hand up, you're not going to train with it much. You're not going to shoot it much. Again, we might have the argument, you shoot it a little bit and you carry it a lot. Well, I think you ought to carry a lot and shoot a lot, so you're well-versed with your gun. I think the 238's really good in that category because it really allows people to carry the gun and shoot the gun. And for somebody like my wife who's a small person, she doesn't want to carry, she thinks a 226 is great. Does she want to shoot one at the range? Not really, because it's a big gun to her. The 238 is more her size. So would she shoot that at the range? Yeah, that would be a range gun for her. For a majority of us being bigger people and gun enthusiasts, 238 is just going to be a pocket gun. You're going to shoot it a little bit and carry it in your pocket more. For her, the 238 would be something that she would shoot more at the range than, you know, a full-size big gun. And she's not really a gun enthusiast, so this is kind of good because me being, you know, doing what I do and everything every day, and her being kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, it gives me a good idea of what's good and what's not good from an unbiased perspective, that she's not a big gun person. So the 290, great gun, but just it wasn't for her. Anybody that's going to be, you know, looking at a gun like that, definitely take a look and see as far as, you know, questioning the size of it. If you're a bigger person, you got big pockets, and that's what you tend to think you're going to do with the gun, is put it in your pocket, the 290 might be okay for you. The 238 is obviously going to be a better fit regardless. So look at that and kind of see what you think before you buy one of these guns. Not necessarily shooting it at the range, but just being able to get it in your hand and feel it, and do it for a while. Put the two guns side by side and check it out and see what you think, because you might be surprised at the difference between the two.